diabetes rate, the Alzheimer's rate, heart disease, cancer are chronic diseases. I want to talk about chronic diseases because I'm all about plants. I want to give you a little intro. I'm an entomologist by profession. I was born in 1947, so that makes me 78 years old. You know, Craig still can't beat me on the golf course. And I shot my age, 77 last year. And the way I looked at it, you know what? By the time I'm 85, I'll shoot my store every day. I'll shoot today. Because it just gets easier the more strokes you get. Is damn near, yeah, you know, by the time I get to be August, I'm going to go have a senior tour. You know, and I've been retiring for about 25 years now. I retired first in 2004 from Alberta Agriculture as provincial entomologist. I also looked after rats, rabies, and so on. So I was around. I was born in 47. Did you know that DNA was finally really explained in 1957 when Watson and Crick wrote that document on DNA? When I was a kid, I used to go out and spray the cows with DDT before Mom would milk them, seek the flies from bothering the milk. Then I came through it. We went to the moon. I was there when Roundup, glyphosate, came on the market. But early 70s, I was at Simon Fraser University to do a major paper on glyphosate because it was coming from Europe and it was a wonder drug. When it came on the market, I don't know if any of you remember, glyphosate was priced at about $50 a liter. It was used for spot treating crabgrass where we couldn't handle it with steel. I don't think we could ever imagine it would have been a miracle drug we are using today. But like all miracle drugs, folks, what are you going to do when Roundup doesn't work anymore? And it's closer than you think. But that's a side point. I was there when ivermectin came on the market. And how during the COVID epidemic, governments lied to us about it. I knew that billions of people had used ivermectin because they were curing river blindness, elephantiasis in West Africa. Being an entomologist, I would know that, of course. So I knew it was safer than almost any drug we had ever made. Nobel Prize for extrabenigual Linus Pauling did it by having seen for human health. So we have this epidemic. Just for curiosity, it's good to know that 1/3 you're going to die from cancer. The other third from cardiovascular disease. And the rest from a mix of, you know, all in getting your getting a car accident, you know, getting chewed up by your combine because you kicked it when it was still ready. Yeah, thing when it works. So I want to talk about that. I know I'm the oldest guy in the room at 78. I don't think there's maybe one guy. And, you know, when people talk to me, how old you are, I says, 78. Planning on my 79th year because now I'm in it. And just to give you context, my dad died 60 years ago on January 1 of this year. I was 18 years old, just started university, and then I had the farm. My mother died 25 years later of dementia, Alzheimer's, and you don't want to do that. You can help it because it's a sad case of reality. I don't plan on dying from any of those diseases. I plan on dying because I just wore out. And that's where I'm going. And I'm going to talk about you wearing up, you young folks. You know, chronic disease is something that takes a long time. And then it's on you. So start now. What I'm going to talk to you about is your mitochondrial health and insulin resistance, the two biggest factors that are affecting the globe today related to the way we eat. So let's go there. Now I got to get this. Oh, there, the title page. Now, before we start, kick over this, Eddie. I want to throw out some things for folks that I've gone through my transition from government to private sector. This man, Rodside, proud moment for me, Rob, to be on the podium before you. This is a huge achievement to be ahead of Rock's site. Like, he's Ked, Mr. Ked, and Elston Slober, great guys. Let's start here. Look at this. This is us in Kazakhstan, eh? And for you guys that don't know, he passed away early with COVID. And this is Warren as a young man. And there we are with Kazakhstan. Oh, wrong line. Oops. Now it's going fast. Let's go back up. All right, skip through it. So there are the guys here. Roadside, Hilton, and that guy. And there is Roadside. Steve's double jumps me in case you didn't know him. There's Elston, that's what he used to look like that. And there he is in the hole, typical spot, soil scientist, doesn't know anything about anything else, but he's pretty good at looking at soil. And here's Matt Gosling. I knew Matt when I was with the government, and Matt was in school, and he go back a lot way, and he's still here, and now we're contracted work with him. And there's the other guys in the mix. Now here's where we're going to start. What do we eat? Now I'm going to tell you this. The food you eat is your medicine. It's the most important decision you make every day. Disease all comes down to mitochondrial health. And for those that don't know what mitochondria are, you still will. And lastly, what I always say in every presentation I am, because I talk about plants, the body knows what to do, just like the plants know what to do. What's happening? Oh, you can't see that. Okay, I'll just go forward and backward. So we're going to take a look at this, because this is really important to me. Let me ask you the question, what do we eat? Or let me ask you that question in a simple way. Our life depends on plants. We either eat plants or the animals that eat plants, right? It's that simple. So that's all true. Your medicine is your plants. It's the difference between you and these plants is you have a brain, which is a problem. Which is a serious problem. If you look at this crop, the plants at the top of the hill and plants in the middle of the hill and the plants in the bottom of the hill and the plants in front of the field, this is northern Saskatchewan up in Northway, are all living in a different environment. And yet genetically, they're all performing, they're all the same. So they're manipulating their genes to go up and down. We as humans, there's some genetic variance, but not much. If you have a genetic problem, that's a different matter, but you're just like one of those plants. All over the board, each one of you was individual plants living in a different environment, breathing different air, eating different food, having different stresses in a relationship or your work, or just because you're ethnically different. So you're doing the same thing. The trouble is, the plants don't make a decision. They act autonomically. We make decisions and wrong decisions about what we eat and how we live. Now, for you, where is it? Our American friend here. This is the new U.S. food day. Finally, eat real food. The only food you should eat is one that doesn't have a label on it. I'll repeat that. The only food you should eat is one that doesn't have a label on it, because then it's real food. Once they put a label on it, other than telling you what's in it and it's processed, it ain't real food anymore. I like cheesies. I really like those hard cheesies. God, they're good. They're salty and they just taste really good. But I don't eat those damn things anymore. I love ice cream. I kibble for ice cream. Don't do that anymore. I've been intermittent fasting for 4 years. I don't eat like I used to eat. I lost 10 pounds, 15 pounds. I work out every day. Every day. Let's take a look at this later. But it has flipped right around. And I don't think Canada has caught up yet. The bottom of the old pyramid was carbs. It made it on the top. Now they've done the right thing. The carbs are at the bottom. Proteins, dairy, vegetables, all the way down, oils, with carbs at the bottom. It's going to take a generation for us to cure ourselves. because we are addicted to sugar in a way that we don't even know. Let's go back in time. I kind of like this kind of stuff. In the beginning, God looked down at earth and said, I got this rock with water on it. I got to make something out of it. How am I going to do that? Well, all there was the soil, the rock at the time, and some water, and the air. So I need something that's going to take what I got there in the soil and run it from the air and make something out of it all. And that's what happened. In the beginning, and we don't know what the origin was, they were back during archaeological evolution once, and one day they were having a party, one ate the other. And they got too close and just gobbled them up. That became the eukaryotes. That happened about 2.2 billion years ago. Right here at the beginning got fast. You see, first merger. We captured mitochondria on that chase. Ooh, now we could make energy. There wasn't much oxygen, but we could make a little bit of energy. All of those eventually went along. Lo and behold, there was another party held, and they really got hammered that time. And they ate something else called plastids. That became the plant. The mitochondria in the plastids went on to become the plants. All the rest of us went on to become the animals. Now, here's the secret. The eukaryotes are all the multi-celled organisms. Now, this is an amazing story that nobody tells you. So, a plant, a fungus, a fish, a bug, a snake, and us are all the same. We use the same amino acids. We take up the same nutrients from the soil. That's the only way we could get them. We don't eat soil. The plants eat the soil. They take the CO2 from the air, to stick them together, make sugar, and the world runs on that. Amazing story for me. And I got there through trace genomics back. The first conference here, I spoke about trace. Now here's something that I didn't know. So when I don't know something, I want to go and tell everybody. The big change, the signal greatest change in Earth's chemistry resulted from the evolution of oxygen through the process of photosynthesis. And that happened somewhere about that same time that we have mitochondria get going. And when we raise the level of oxygen through splitting water, by the same process then, with the same elements as it is done today, with manganese, calcium, and oxygen. That's the first thing that happens in photosynthesis, and the oxygen is given off to us, and that oxygenated the world. That changed everything, because now, instead of having sulfurs out there in the air, methane's in the air, we could make ozone. We took and added another oxygen that made O3, ozone, which can protect the Earth from the solar radiation that is coming in. And we went on till today. The problem was that oxygen also can become damaging in plants and in animals, because everything that breathes oxygen is aerobic, damages the oxygen in the cells through respiration and through photosynthesis. And you would believe that the plants would have figured that out. And largely they have. And the rest of the talk is about that. Here's a plant cell on the left and an animal cell on the right. There's not much difference. The difference is plant cells have chloroplasts for photosynthesis, a few other things. They have a cell wall in the plasma membrane. They have nucleus. They have mitochondria, those little sort of banana-shaped things are mitochondria, and they function the same way. They function as sugar. Glucose is what harms us, because that's the only way we can get carbon. Now, I often ask farmers, what's the one element that determines your crop in any given year? A lot of times they'll say, well, nitrogen, phosphorus. No. What is it? Carbon. The only way we get carbon is through plants and photosynthesizing, making sugar, and everything in the ground wants it too, by the way. Every animal wants it, whether it be a predator or not. So we're autotrophic. We made this based on the sun and what we can get. All of us are heterotrophic. We eat our food, and it is that food and the water we take in that determines who you are healthy and physically. And it's that simple. When you take in air, breathe, you take in carbon dioxide, this is the carbon that comes in the plant, but we don't take carbon out of it. We just take oxygen out. We don't even take nitrogen out of it. You only get nitrogen into plants if we get lightning or we get fixation by microbes. And we got to feed that plant to do that. Okay, are you convinced that the way you eat is the most important thing for your health in your life? Besides other things, exercise and so on, I'll get into that. So what happens with oxygen? Well, you get these free radicals when oxygen is damaged and they lose an electron. And then when they lose the electron, they're out of balance. So they run around in the cell looking for the electron, and they find one and they take it out of your cell. And during that process, they damage it. So we have these things called antioxidants. You know, if vitamin C will go along and it'll donate that electron and get rid of that free radical. We call it reactive oxygen species, and everybody's happy and it'll look after itself. That's what caused it all. So here's what happens in photosynthesis. We have the chloroplast up top, and we make sugar. We send it to the mitochondria, and there we use cellular respiration through the Krebs cycle. And what do we get? The famous ATP, right? ATP. And I used to assume everybody knew what ATP was because I learned that back at university and so on. And now the kids learned that in grade 10. And most farmers hear it, have no idea what it is. ATP is a spark plug of life. Every reaction, every function in your body and in the plant, it comes from the power from ATP, which stands for adenosine triphosphate, phosphorus. The key to life. Every organism needs phosphorus. It's probably the most important metal we have. It's just, I think you said that they put it on their list of priority metals, strategic metals. They hardly have any in the United States. It's mostly in Morocco. Some of that phosphate you're using is from Morocco, really most of it. And on the right side there, you can see that's the molecule ATP on your right-hand side. And all it does is to make energy, it removes that bond, the high energy bond on the side. And when it does that, energy is given off and then it recycles and gets recycled in the mitochondria. And if the mitochondria are not functioning properly, nothing works. In the plant, and in you, and every other animal and bug and earthworm, that's a multicellular organism. That's what's important. So you got to look after your phosphorus, and you get that from your food. When I was in your position and somebody would show me this, I would just go nuts, because what the hell is he showing me that for? And I can't understand that. It's true, you can't understand it. Doesn't matter. You need to know what's happening. That's right there. This is what happens in the mitochondria in terms of what's called the electron transport chain. These electrons are moved along. If we get food from up top here, if I NAD and FADH, food from your consumption of food is broken down and is taken to the mitochondrial electron transport chain. And there's 5 units for that chain, and at the end of it, at the right side, is something called ATD synthase. In other words, when you see synthase, that's an enzyme, and that's how it makes ATP. And it runs like a dam. What it does, it pumps hydrogens in between the layers until you get a high level of hydrogen, and that then is pushed through the ATP enzyme through a little portal, like a big dam. It's got water, and it's got little holes there, and it runs a generator. The same thing can with ATP, and it actually physically turns and there's thousands of them in our body, physically turns into patches of phosphorus to ADP and becomes ATP and water. If you don't have oxygen though there to take care of those hydrogens and produce the water, you damage the cells. You got an electron problem there. So oxygen is important. That's why exercise works, man. You oxygenate. Not excessive, because if you're riding a spin bicycle for too darn long, you're going to actually create reactive oxygen species because you can't get enough oxygen to it to deal with it. So the bottom line, people are saying, this is the basis of all disease. Has to be. If you don't have energy, nothing works. So let's take a look at the plant, because they know the best. What are the things that cause those reactive? Heat, chilling, drought, water stress, salinity, radiation. Coming in, creates that little red box called reactive oxygen species, which causes what's called oxidative stress. And it affects the lipids, proteins, and DNA. When that happens, we have problems, we have illness, we have sickness. Because those are all that can notice it. We have three classes of food that we consume, right? Fats, lipids, proteins, and sugars, carbohydrates. It's those three classes that make it up. And the good ones, as just changed in the US plan, are the proteins, the lipids, and the carbs under the different format and mess. Hey, we're getting close. So here's what happens. These reactive oxygen species are important to the body either at low levels. I'm going to give you an example. If you're attacked by something, an organism in your body, or the body immune system wants to get rid of it, it has several mechanisms to do that. One of them is to create reactive oxygen species and kill them. In a cancer cell, for example, they're working on using reactive oxygen species to kill tumor cells. It works sometimes, it doesn't work other times. And a plant, the same thing happens. You get an infection of fungus, it surrounds the fungus, it creates reactive oxygen species and kills it. Plant cell death, which is programmed into plants, is created by the plant producing reactive oxygen species to kill the cells and senesce the plant. When a plant is deficient, then it's going to move nutrients from lower leaves to upper leaves. Because it's deficient, it has to kill and lyse those cells to take the nutrients out and move them out. That's by reactive oxygen species. The trouble is, when the stress is too high, you get a week of 40-degree weather, 35-degree weather, to get the roots flooded. The plant is producing too many of them, and it's out of balance. That's what causes the problem. You're out of balance on your nutrition, you're out of balance in your health, your mental state, your exercise, all of those things relate to it. Okay, now up. There we go. So, I use this as plants. I use this for every farmer I talk to. I use this to show what the plant does. What's ascorbate? Let's look at the antioxidants, non-enzymatic ascorbate. Come on. Vitamin C. Oh, didn't know that, did you? Or did you? Or is just not on a car? I'll tell you one thing about vitamin C. Remember the days of scurvy? You probably took that at school about the lion maze. They were dying under folks. From 50 years, figured that out. Just like our science says 50 years to England, and something we figure out. Going nuts. But ascorbate. We don't make vitamin C, by the way. We know. We're one of the very few animals on Earth that don't make vitamin C, and I'm telling you, you should take vitamin C, because it's involved in reactive oxygen species management. And tocopherol number 4 there. What is that? That's vitamin E. Vitamin E and vitamin C help each other during the process of looking at those reactive oxygen species. And where do we get our vitamin E from? From oils. All plants have some oils in them. And the oil issue for farmers, Mr. Kamola, is a serious issue appearing on you. there is a big movement in the sort of health industry to ban fat seeds. All in all. So what's everybody eating? The darn olive companies, those olive guys in Greece, Demetrius, the olive guys in Greece, want to capture the whole world. Want us to all eat a monosaturated fat instead of a polysaturated fat, like multiple double bonds in it. So but vitamin E. Now there's been a lot of work done with vitamin E as therapy. And the one thing with vitamin E, you gotta watch out because overdosing can be dangerous. Every day, high dosages can be sort of that too. So it's a matter of vitamins. Glutathione, Elfin's favorite antioxidant. You know why he looks so young? He takes a pot of glutathione. Actually, we both do. But we take it as that and acetylcysteine. Because if you eat glutathione, your body can't digest it. I forgot to tell you something. It's not just what you eat that's important. It's what this can be an outer. So what's the big thing now? Gut microbiome. The gut is the second brain, so to speak, runs through the vagus nerve, and that's what sort of controls your whole, autonomic nervous system. It's amazing to me that these plants use the same thing. Glutathione is the first thing to respond to reactive oxygen species in people. And what is it made from? It's made from cysteine. It's the one amino acid that has sulfur in it. Sulfur is key to this whole process in terms of scavenging those reactive oxygen species. And the keratins are why you eat blueberries. Those bright colors, those flavonoids and so on in there that are important. Those are all antioxidants. But the most important one, I'll go back a minute. For folks that are wondering about the fact that we haven't got a lot of data on the impact of all these plant antioxidants and the same ones in humans, is that the experiments that are done to try and cure problems, it's hard to do something that's going to say this is going to prevent a problem. I think we will never have that data to cure. They're looking at nanotechnology so that they can pinpoint them into tumor cells and brain cells and do damage. So to me, because it's a chronic disease, I think these are the things that will help you over your lifetime, not in a month before you're diagnosed with cancer. That's the way I see it. These are the important of the enzyme because they're made by us. The most important one, I won't go through this, that thing called SOD, S-O-D, superoxide desiccase. Those other ones are somewhat important, but more important in plants. Which way do I point that dark thing? There we go. So this is it, superoxide desiccase. So it takes these oxygens with a little hydrogen, turns it into peroxide, and then these things called catalase break that down into water. Now, superoxide desiccase contains manganese, and then Fe, iron, copper, Cu, and zinc. Manganese sod is sod number 1. Copper zinc sod is sod number 2. Sod number 1, manganese, lives right inside the mitochondria, looking after those free radicals as best it can as soon as they're formed. We don't have big deficiencies of manganese. Sod number 2 lives in what's called the liquid of the mitochondria. Copper and zinc is the other scavenger. Not the zinc, but the copper. What they have to work together is cofactors. I don't think manganese, I take a copper zinc balance of 10-1 for that particular reason, and because zinc deficiency, even though maybe not showing up as much here as we thought, globally equals about 1/3 of the world's population is deficient in zinc. And just so you know, things like molybdenum, manganese, zinc, copper are now being classified as essential minerals globally. Countries are going to start hoarding those And as time goes on, as we deplete these of our soil, it's going to be harder and harder, more expensive to get them. And every time you send off feed to the urban feedlot, as I call them, all that's gone from your soil, and the only source is what's left in your soil. Because we have mined the soil here in Saskatchewan and most of the prairies for 120 years and put nothing much back, including the phosphorus. And for sure not the micronutrients. That's why the supplement industry is going to boom, because they're going to scare the daylights out of you, and they're going to want to be healthy. And no, I take vitamin C. I think vitamin C in the liposomal format, because the vitamin C is water soluble. I want to get it into my cells, so I take it as a fat, so to get it to my cells, because my cells are all surrounded by that. I don't take much else. I take vitamin D. Before I come here 2 days ago, I took a shot of 20,000 units. Because I prepare myself to come here because I'm scared of you guys. You're going to cough on me. When COVID came along, I didn't get vaccinated. I ate needles. My wife said, you get vaccinated and you get sick, I'm not going to look after you, stupid bugger. So that doesn't mean I didn't do anything. I loaded up my vitamin D3 because I know my mother knew 50 years ago, 60 years ago that I needed vitamin D living in this climate where we don't have sun. Vitamin D is made from exposure to sun and cholesterol. How many of you guys are on statins in here? Don't put up your hand because you want to really know. I don't know, maybe calcium blockers. And maybe that's the other problem, because high blood pressure. All of those can be reversed, folks. All of those. Diabetes type 2 can be reversed. It's happening all over the world. And nobody's telling you. I'm telling you. Look it up. If you want one person to, if you got a weight problem, and I'll get to that in a minute. The guy I would suggest you listen to is the guy named Dr. Jason Fone. His YouTube, his books. He's coming out with a new book called The Ogre Code. He's Canadian. He was the guy who sort of is responsible for intermittent fasting. And he's a nephrologist living in Canada for some kidneys. So he explains the whole thing very, very clearly. But let's get through this one. So here's the problem, this balance. It's out of balance. Mitochondrial dysfunction causes inflammation in cell bed. Affects proteins and all the things that are important. It's that balance, mitochondria, producing those reactive oxygen species. Now, I think, can you read that? Probably not, and that's why I worry about it. So let's take a look at, in humans, what causes these reactive oxygen. Well, I'll read them. Heavy metals, viruses, metabolism, smoke, pollution, radiation, processed foods, and UV light. All the things we're exposed to daily, except for the guys that smoke, they get a better chance at getting cancer, and a better chance at getting cardiovascular disease and having a heart attack. So they're taking advantage of the environment. They don't want to live too long. Like, oh, yeah, Doris didn't tell me that. I tell you, my father died from lung cancer, started smoking when he was 10 years old, died at 59. I never smoked. And did you know that the tobacco industry used to soak their tobacco in sugar back in the 20s when they were moving from pipes and cigars to make people like it? They've been feeding us sugar without us even knowing for 100 years. And they knew about diabetes in the 1700s. For those of you that might be semi-diabetic or pre-diabetic, you've heard of metformin. Well, that came from a lilac tree in France. They figured out how to take that like aspirin from willows, for crying out loud. So what are the antioxidants here? Vitamins, flavonoids, enzymatic, and unprocessed food. Your medicine is unprocessed food, the food that doesn't have a label. And here's a simple review. We have the antioxidants affected by those. We have cardiovascular disease, cancer, diabetes, and neurodegenerative diseases as outcomes of those reactive oxygen species damaging your mitochondria, affecting the tangles in your brain and your nerve cells, causing dementia, all kinds of neurological diseases. I put 2 on because I wasn't sure if you could read that. It's just as another summary to show it for guys that only read that kind of stuff. So mitochondrial oxidative respiration generates most ROS, making the brain highly susceptible to oxidative stress. The brain has more mitochondria than anywhere else. It uses more energy. So it wastes about 3% of your body weight and uses 20-25% of your energy. So your brain is running on mitochondria and glucose. And if you don't get glucose and you're overweight and you start burning your fat, it runs on ketones. And it loves ketones. So when you are overweight or you want to lose weight, you got to quit putting in sugar and force your body to burn fat. And the only way you could do it is restrict calories. I'll get into that in a minute. If untreated, oxidative stress can damage proteins, lipids, and DNA. I told you that, to various neurological cardiovascular disease, and something that is now nicknamed metabolic syndrome. Pick up anything now. Metabolic syndrome. Inflammation. This is perfect. Inflammation. Those kinds of things. So it's that balance. And now if you don't have that balance, you wind up with these things: Parkinson's disease, these Alzheimer's, cognitive problems. And unfortunately, as I get older, I'm at higher risk because these antioxidants are being produced at a lower amount, in lower quantities. The brain, serotonin. Look at what's involved in the pathway of serotonin: vitamin B6, molybdenum, iron, vitamin B6 again, B6, copper, vitamin B6, iron, tryptophan, an amino acid that we have trouble producing. If you have children, people, friends, yourself, and you have mental depression issues and so on, seek help. The first thing I would do is look at my diet, and I'd get some help on this. This is Dr. Kaplan. If we did all this work on children at the University of Calgary, gave me these. That's our good one. This is dopamine, which affects our motor neuron system. Look at what's going on. Upper left, B1, B6, zinc, phenylalanine, that's a partner of tryptophan. B3, all those, folate. Iron, B12. B12, that's another vitamin I take because plants dose makes vitamin D12. If you're vegan, you got to take it. You get most of it from B. Vitamin C, magnesium, zinc, all of those are in the brain, just like they are everywhere else, and it's hard to get it in there. The brain barrier is working for. So here's healthy lifestyle is the other part of this beside E. Maintain your diet. Visceral fat is your signal. When you're pre-diabetic or you're in diabetes, your insulin is responsible for storing your energy. When you digest food and you have too much carbohydrate, because it can't store this carbohydrate, it just starts storing it in the liver. As you add to that, the liver is full, it has to store it somewhere else. What it does, it converts it to fat, and the trick is, where does it store the fat? Right here. Right here. I have a sort of rule. If you're wondering if you got pre-diabetes, when you're at the urinal and having a pee, and you can't see the tip, that's when you know you're probably pre-diabetic. The other rule of thumb is if you're a woman and your waistline is rated 35, or a man at the navel is over 40, you should get some help. You want early signs of pre-diabetes. Regular exercise. Oops. Regular exercise, it helps get rid of sleep. Sleep is a massive problem. You know what happens when you sleep? And you don't want to eat anything for 4 hours before you sleep. You don't want to have your body, you don't want to drink it either. You don't want to have alcohol. Your body can't just awful. Handle alcohol with and fructose at all. In like a minute, just poison you. Right? So it is sleep. What happens when you sleep, deep sleep? Your brain shrinks. We have something called a lymphatic system that flushes your brain, just like your lymph system looks after your body. Flushes your brain. That's why you need pee in the morning, because it's taking all the toxins out and it's moving it into the kidneys, through the liver, and it's got to get rid of those. And it removes all those toxins during your sleep. Manage your stress. I've only known no stress once in my life. I was diving with my daughter in Togian Islands, on an island that had no communication with the world. I slept in a hammock. I dove 3 times a day. That was when I turned 58. 20 years ago, I went diving. That was an experience. If you haven't done it, try it. It's an amazing, different world. I look 10 years younger. I go. And for the first time, I realized that this is no stress. We're under so much stress that we don't even know we're under stress, and what not having stress is like, just by licking in this grocery bar. Of course, look after your gut. Dysbiosis is becoming the big thing, and now we got things like the genetic stuff we can do. We can measure that. Smoking, well, I don't say nothing about that. Excess alcohol, forget that. You know that. Be happy. Life is good. I've been through a fair number of divorces. And whenever I get into one of those, I get quite upset and quite stressed. So do people around me, and so what do I say to myself? I say, well, I've been here before. I don't like it. I don't really like it. But, I've come through it before. So here's my motto. When the right gets tough, the tough get funny. The lessons that I've learned that were the toughest were probably the best ones. And it was in those times where you think you can do that. And if you can't do it, find somebody who will listen. I'm not a listener, by the way. My wife told me that, and I like her. And insulin resistance is key. There's our guide. If you want to know how to eat, take a look at that. Focus on proteins, focus on vegetables, consider cutting back on your omega-6 and 9 filtered canola oil and all these seed oils, and wrap up your EPA and DHA, your in-between fatty oil. The balance is way out of whack. It's not that canola oil is bad. It's just that they're putting in everything, so we got a 20-to-1 ratio, and there's no room for omega-3s to even come in. You know how I deal with that? I eat herrings every day, because we get the omega-3s from fish. I eat fermented foods every day. I eat kimchi, or I drink kefir, or I eat sauerkraut. And I eat sourdough bread because it's fermented as well. Yogurt sugar, not the sugar. Sugar kills it. Okay? Do those kind of things. This is the best guide I see. I don't eat bananas either. There's too many carbs in that. Whenever you eat the big problem, the whole problem with weight problem is spiking of insulin and resistance of insulin to put energy into the cells. Putting on weight is a hormone problem. And as soon as you learn that, when you go into intermittent fasting, you find out that is easy to handle. Just here's all those kind of foods. We know where they are. Ascorbic acid, you could find this anywhere. Here are the vitamins and so on. And there is my special leader, my wife, Erna, at the lake this summer. She takes all my stress, and she's what keeps me going. Thanks a lot. Wait. I have something in here. Hold it. If there was one food, one single thing that you could eat, that you would think would be the best thing I could ever eat nutritionally, what would that be? Now I'll give you an example, because I was said, well, what do you mean? I said, how about a steak with, a steak or a big chunk of meat? How about an apple? Maybe a blueberry. What would it be? Tell me. Eggs. Right. But that's not the answer. That's the real answer about an egg. Why? It's eggs. Did you notice on that? There were the times with cholesterol that they told us not to take too much cholesterol in a day. Stupidest thing that ever happened, and we took it. We take shit we shouldn't. They're all lying to us, for crying out loud. You can't watch the news and believe anything you see. Oh, I'll watch Dad's YouTube if they believe that. Maybe I'm going to start doing them with them. So, I hope I have some credibility. Why the egg? I'm still waiting for the answer. What makes the egg unique to everything else we eat?
It produces a light.
It's the only thing we can eat that makes light in itself, right? There's nothing else we can eat that in itself would create life. If that's the case, how could it be bad for you? The only thing we can eat that has everything we need to become a living organism. Thanks a lot.
I would round of applause again for Mike. We won't set you down yet. You've set the bar high by being on time. Appreciate that. We do have time. We got about 2 minutes for questions. Anybody have a good singer for Mike? Yes, expanded our minds this morning. Any questions for Mike?
Well,
Any questions?
Should we be flipping the food guide to be more like Cody?
well, no, Canada should split the food guide. Pretty darn soon if they have it. Shoot.
I just want to see that slide that is flip by the foods and not eat. You went by that fast.
But yeah, because they were pushing. But that is there.
Bring it back next year.
I feel there we go. Swap. This one there, antioxidant foods. The tomatoes, the berries, the olive oil, the fish, all of those things that haven't got a label on them, that have colors that are bright colors, have unsaturated fats in them. Garlic and onions for the sulfurs that makes glutathione. The teas, the beans, the lentils. You guys in Saskatchewan made it. The lentils and the beans. Perfect. I eat those all the time. So, the fish is where we get our omega-3s. I eat a tomato a day. I've been addicted to tomatoes all my life, and I've moved to nuts. If I want a snack, I don't get chips out anymore. I get nuts. I always have nuts. And you don't eat cashews and peanuts. You eat Brazil nuts for us guys that have selenium in them to help with our prostate gland. In the IG Hawk study, the same thing. Blueberries, pecans. Pecans are one of the few things that have omega-3 fatty acids in them compared to fish, and a little bit in flax. Kidney beans, beets. Beets are now, you can see on TV, they're trying to sell you beets. Why? Beets have nitrates in them. Nitrates, or nitric oxide, is what dilates your blood vessels in your heart. Okay? And if you have erectile dysfunction, you've probably got a beet problem, and you can cure it with beets. Say, because that's the same as your heart. If you can dilate to allow blood in, that's what's causing it. So that's why you're hearing about beets. Cocoa, a really good antioxidant. Cinnamons, cabbage for a glutathione. I forgot one thing. Don't drink your juices. Children should not have apple juice. They should have an apple. They shouldn't have oranges. They should have an orange. They shouldn't have pineapple juice. They should have pineapple. Drinking that spikes your insulin so fast, it's as bad as bread. And we should graze. My daughter feeds her kids continuously, and it's driving me nuts. We're not cows. We're people. We're living in genes that were close to caveman, in a world where we're eating sugar which didn't exist except in honey, in massive amounts in the last 50 years. Our genes haven't changed to bring about all this disease. Our genes don't change. It's how we have changed. People who immigrate to this country come here skinny. Give them a few years. They look like the rest of us. It's as serious pandemic globally. Now there's something else called tofu. Tofu. Thin outside, fat inside. Asians have that. They'll be skinny as a rail and they have this big gut. That's a sure sign. And they're developing that at breakneck pace. India, China. They're adopting the North American way. Oh, they're going to get the results of the North American way. We don't have to worry about fighting.
If you get a chance to sit at a round table with Mike to speak, please do that. Thank